There's a fundamental truth that many people seem to ignore. When you betray a good soul, you are not just hurting another person, you are setting fire to the very foundation of trust, integrity, and meaning in your own life. You might think you've won something in the short term. Maybe you gained an advantage, escaped responsibility, or satisfied some fleeting desire. But life does not operate on a system of immediate gratification alone. It operates on deeper, more inescapable principles, ones that govern character, morality, and the consequences of our choices. To betray a good person is to commit an act of destruction against something rare and valuable. A good soul operates on honesty, loyalty, and genuine care, qualities that are becoming increasingly scarce in a world addicted to self-interest. And yet, because they are kind, because they are forgiving, people often mistake their goodness for weakness. They assume that because a good person does not retaliate immediately, the consequences of betrayal will never come. But that is a grave miscalculation. The first cost of betrayal is internal. The betrayer carries with them a stain, a weight that cannot be easily discarded. You can rationalize, you can justify, you can convince yourself that what you did was necessary, but deep down, the knowledge of your own actions does not disappear. It lingers, it erodes, it turns into guilt, shame, and self-doubt, manifesting in ways you might not even recognize. Failed relationships, lost trust, an inability to form deep connections. Because how can you truly connect with others when you've severed the connection to your own conscience? Betrayal is not just a simple act of dishonesty or broken trust. It is a wound inflicted not only on another, but on the very foundation of human connection. It carries a weight far heavier than most realize, a weight that lingers long after the moment of deceit is past. When someone betrays a good soul, they may think they are walking away free, untouched, or even victorious. But betrayal is never without consequence, and its effects run deeper than the surface shows. For the one who is betrayed, the weight is immediate. It is the sudden realization that the loyalty, love, and trust they gave so freely were disregarded, taken for granted, or worse, used against them. It shakes their understanding of relationships, of people, of the very nature of human connection. It creates a fracture in their belief that goodness is always met with goodness. It can make them question their worth, their judgment, and even their purpose. But this weight, though painful, is not meant to break them. It is meant to refine them. The weight of betrayal is a teacher. It forces the betrayed to see the world more clearly, not with bitterness, but with wisdom. It teaches them who truly deserves their loyalty and who was never worthy of it to begin with. It opens their eyes to the reality that not everyone operates with the same heart, and that being a good person does not mean being naive. It strengthens them, making them more discerning, more self-awareness, more powerful in their ability to navigate life with both kindness and caution. But while the betrayed may carry the pain for a time, the true weight of betrayal rests most heavily on the one who committed it. At first, they may not feel it. In the immediate aftermath, they may convince themselves they were justified, that they had a reason, that it was necessary, or even that they will never face any real consequences. But life does not operate on short-term gains alone. Every action has an echo, and betrayal, more than most, creates ripples that return in unexpected ways. The weight begins to manifest in ways the betrayer did not anticipate. It shows up in their relationships, in their inability to truly trust others, because deep down they know what they are capable of, and they fear that same darkness in those around them. It appears in moments of silence, when the distractions fade and they are left alone with their thoughts. It takes form in the quiet guilt that creeps in the opportunities lost. It is an unshakable burden, because to betray a good soul is to betray something within themselves. What many fail to understand is that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to restore to its original state. A good soul may forgive, but they do not forget. They do not return to blindness. They do not hand back their loyalties so easily. And the betrayer, no matter how much they may wish to undo their actions, finds that they have lost something irreplaceable, the trust, the connection, the pure and honest relationship they once had is gone. And that is a weight that cannot be lifted. But there is a choice in every path. Betrayal does not have to define a person forever. The weight it carries can serve as a warning, a lesson, a reason to change. Those who betray must face themselves, acknowledge their actions, and seek a higher standard of integrity. They must understand that the true measure of a person is not in what they get away with, but in what they build, in the trust they honor, and in the goodness they choose to uphold. The weight of betrayal is heavy, but it is heaviest for those who refuse to learn from it. And for those who have been betrayed, know this: the weight you feel now will not last forever. It will shape you, but it will not break you. It will make you stronger, wiser, and more discerning in who you allow into your life. You will rise above it, while those who inflicted it will eventually feel the burden of their own action, because life always balances the scales and no betrayal goes unanswered. Betrayal is often thought of as something that wounds the one who is deceived, but what many fail to realize is that its deepest and most destructive effects are reserved for the betrayer. To betray is to compromise something fundamental within oneself, to shatter trust, to trade integrity for temporary gain, to act against the very principles that make a person whole. It may not be immediately visible, and it may not be instantly felt, but betrayal is a poison that works from the inside out, corroding the soul of the one who commits it. At first, it may seem like nothing has changed. The betrayer may justify their actions, convincing themselves that what they did was necessary, unavoidable, or even beneficial. They may feel victorious, as if they have outmaneuvered life, as if they have gained something valuable at another's expense. But what they do not yet realize is that they have set into motion a slow and inevitable decay, one that does not announce itself with grand gestures, but creeps in quietly, dismantling their character, their relationships, and their very sense of self. The first thing to erode is trust. Not just the trust others have in them, but their own ability to trust. A person who betrays begins to see the world through their own lens of deception. They become suspicious, guarded, unable to fully believe in the loyalty of others. Because deep down, they know what they are capable of, and they begin to project that same capacity for betrayal onto those around them. They may pretend to be at peace, but a part of them is always waiting for the moment when someone does to them what they have done to others. Then comes the guilt, though it rarely presents itself in obvious ways. Guilt does not always arrive as immediate remorse. Sometimes it disguises itself as defensiveness, as anger, as restlessness. The betrayer may lash out at others, unable to face the reflection of their own choices. They may seek distractions, filling their time with empty pursuits, trying to outrun the reality of what they have done. But no amount of external noise can silence the truth that lingers in the back of their mind. As time passes, relationships begin to suffer. Betrayal is not a one-time event. It is a pattern, a mindset, a habit that spreads like rust on metal. Those who betray once often find themselves doing it again, not necessarily because they intend to, but because they have already crossed the line that once held them accountable. The erosion of integrity does not stop with a single act. It continues, chipping away at their ability to be honest, to be loyal, to form deep and meaningful connections. And eventually they find themselves alone, not always physically, but emotionally, spiritually. The people they once counted on have pulled away. The good souls they took for granted have moved on, leaving them with those who, like them, operate in shadows, in half-truths, in temporary alliances that hold no real depth. They may have gained something material, something fleeting, but they have lost something far greater: the respect of others, the warmth of genuine connection, the ability to look at themselves in the mirror without questioning who they have become. The most tragic part of this corrosion is that it is self-inflicted. It is not something done to them by another. It is a consequence of their own choices. And until they confront it, until they take responsibility and seek to rebuild what they have broken within themselves, the decay will continue. Because betrayal is not just about hurting someone else. It is about losing oneself in the process. Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds a person can endure. It shakes the very foundation of trust, leaving behind a sense of loss, disbelief, and pain. But while betrayal may feel like a devastating blow, it does not have the power to define the betrayed. In fact, those who have been wronged in such a way often find that they are far stronger than they ever imagined. Pain, when processed correctly, transforms into wisdom. Loss, when accepted with courage, creates space for something better. And those who endure betrayal and rise above it do not just survive, they evolve into stronger, more resilient versions of themselves. At first, the pain is overwhelming. It is natural to question everything. How could someone I trusted do this? Was I not enough? Could I have prevented this? These thoughts are inevitable because betrayal is personal. It is not just about the act itself, but about what it represents. The realization that someone we believed in did not value our trust the way we valued them. This realization is crushing, but it is also a moment of awakening. It forces us to see things as they truly are, to strip away illusions, and to recognize that not everyone has the capacity to love, respect, and remain loyal as we do. This is where resilience begins. Resilience is not about ignoring the pain or pretending it does not exist. It is about confronting it, feeling it fully, and choosing not to let it consume us. It is about refusing to let someone else's betrayal make us bitter, closed off, or vengeful. Because the greatest tragedy of betrayal is not the act itself, it is what it has the potential to do to the heart of the one who is betrayed. If we allow it, it can turn kindness into cynicism, trust into paranoia, love into fear. But the truly strong refuse to let someone else's weakness dictate who they become. True resilience is found in transformation. The betrayed learn the value of boundaries, of discernment, of knowing who is truly worthy of their trust. They realize that their worth was never determined by the actions of another, and they reclaim their power by deciding how they will move forward. Some of the strongest, most successful, and most grounded individuals in the world have walked through the fire of betrayal, and instead of being destroyed by it, they used it as fuel to rise. And the greatest revenge, though a wise soul knows that revenge is never the goal, is simply to live well, to thrive, to continue being kind without being naive, to trust again without forgetting the lessons learned. The betrayed, when they heal, become unshakable. They develop a strength that those who betrayed them will never understand. They move forward with clarity, wisdom, and a deeper sense of self-respect. Betrayal is painful, but it is not the end. It is a chapter in a much longer story. And for those who choose growth over bitterness, pain over numbness, and strength over resentment, the best chapters are still ahead. Betrayal may feel like a momentary act, a decision made in the heat of self-interest, impulse, or deception. But what many fail to realize is that the cost of betrayal is never immediate. It is a slow, accumulating debt that life demands to be paid. Those who betray may walk away feeling as though they have escaped consequences, as if they have gained something at another's expense. But life does not work that way. The universe keeps a perfect balance, and the weight of betrayal is never truly lifted. It only compounds over time, revealing its full cost when it is too late to undo the damage. At first, there may be no apparent repercussions. The betrayer may justify their actions, convince themselves they were right, or numb their conscience with distractions. They may even feel empowered, believing they have outmaneuvered the situation. But betrayal is not just an act against another. It is an act against one's own integrity. And the moment someone chooses dishonesty, disloyalty, or deception, they create a fracture within themselves that cannot be ignored forever. The long-term cost begins with relationships. Trust, once broken, rarely heals completely. The betrayed may forgive, but they never forget. Those who have been wronged move on, not in bitterness, but with a heightened awareness of who deserves their presence. The betrayer, however, does not always realize what they have lost until much later. They may take for granted the good souls who stood by them, only to find themselves surrounded by people who mirror their own actions, those who deceive, manipulate, and abandon without hesitation. The betrayal they once inflicted returns to them in unexpected ways as they begin to experience the same treatment they once justified. Then comes the internal toll. A person cannot repeatedly act against their conscience without it leaving scars. They may suppress the guilt, drown it out with distractions, or avoid facing themselves, but deep down a part of them knows. They know they have compromised something essential. They know they have lost something pure and irreplaceable. And this knowing manifests in anxiety, restlessness, and inability to form deep and meaningful connections. Betrayal does not just take away another's trust, it erodes the betrayer's own sense of peace. Over time, this pattern affects every aspect of life. The betrayer struggles to build anything lasting, be it friendships, relationships, or a sense of fulfillment. Because trust is the foundation of all human connection, and once a person proves they are capable of betrayal, that foundation remains unstable. They may find temporary gains, fleeting pleasures, short-lived victories, but true stability and success evade them. They look around and see that while others have built strong, loyal bonds, they stand alone, not by chance, but by consequence. Perhaps the worst cost is regret. Betrayal often feels justified in the moment, but as time passes, perspective shifts. The betrayer eventually realizes what they destroyed, the good soul they pushed away, the trust they will never regain, the love they shattered. And regret is a cruel thing, because unlike other consequences, it offers no solutions. It is a reminder of what was lost forever, of a path that can never be walked again. The lesson is clear. Betrayal is never worth the price it demands. No short-term gain, no momentary escape, no selfish impulse is worth the lifelong weight of knowing you have destroyed something valuable. The long-term cost is not always immediate, but it is inevitable. And for those who have been betrayed, know this: while the betrayer carries this burden for years to come, you have the power to heal, to rise, and to build a life where betrayal has no place. There comes a moment when every person who has betrayed another stands at a crossroads. The moment of reckoning. It may not happen immediately, and it may not come in the form of an external punishment, but life does not allow betrayal to go unanswered forever. At some point, the weight of what they have done catches up to them. They begin to see the fractures in their relationships, the emptiness in their victories, the growing isolation that their actions have created. They begin to understand that betrayal was never truly an escape. It was a trade, and what they lost in the process was far more valuable than what they gained. For some, this moment leads to further denial. They refuse to acknowledge the role they played, choosing instead to blame others, circumstances, or even fate. They harden themselves against regret, convincing themselves that there is no way back, that change is impossible, that the only way forward is to continue down the same road. But denial does not erase the consequences. It does not rebuild lost trust. It does not restore what was broken. And for those who choose this path, the reckoning becomes a slow descent into bitterness, where their own choices become a prison they cannot escape. But for others, this reckoning sparks something deeper, an opportunity for redemption. True redemption is not about erasing the past, because the past cannot be undone. It is about confronting it, owning it, and making the conscious decision to rise above it. It is about no longer running from the truth, but standing in it, fully aware of the damage done, and fully committed to becoming something more. Redemption begins the moment a person decides that who they were is not who they must remain. This path is not easy. It demands humility, a willingness to face uncomfortable truths, and the courage to repair what has been broken, even when it is painful, even when it seems impossible. It requires not just words of apology, but consistent action, integrity, and proof that the lesson has been learned. And even then, Redemption is not a guarantee. Those who were betrayed are under no obligation to forgive, to trust again, or to reopen doors that were once shut. But redemption is not about forcing others to accept change. It is about becoming someone who no longer betrays, someone who no longer walks in the shadows of deception, someone who chooses loyalty, truth, and honor, no matter how difficult that choice may be. For those who have been betrayed, the reckoning of the betrayer is not their burden to carry. Life will balance the scales in ways seen and unseen. The best revenge is not vengeance. It is living a life free from the chains of resentment. It is moving forward with clarity, strength, and wisdom, knowing that those who walk with integrity will always have something that betrayers do not: peace. And for those who have betrayed, the choice remains: continue down a path that leads to further destruction, or take responsibility, seek redemption, and become the kind of person who no longer has to live with the weight of their past. The greatest tragedy of betrayal is that it is often done to someone who would have given their loyalty unconditionally. A good soul does not demand perfection. They accept flaws, they forgive mistakes, they love despite imperfection. And when that kind of person is betrayed, the betrayer is not just losing them, they are losing access to something rare, something real. That loss cannot be replaced, no matter how much one tries to chase new distractions, new relationships, new lies. But here's the harshest reality. Life has a way of settling its debts. It does not forget. The betrayal you commit against another will eventually find its way back to you, often in ways you least expect. Perhaps through loneliness, through regret, through the realization that in breaking someone else's heart, you've slowly broken your own. No one escapes the consequences of their actions. The universe keeps perfect score. So if you are the one who has been betrayed, know this: you will heal, you will rise, you will become stronger and wiser in ways you never imagined. And if you are the one who has betrayed a good soul, understand that the price of your actions will always be paid, whether in lost opportunities, in a restless conscience, or in the realization that you let go of something that you will never find again.